Okay, I know how hard it is to keep up with my information because I go that quick, and many people are distracted and trying to live their life, and it's hard to keep track of my info. So I'm gonna give people the benefit of the doubt. And so, okay, Jilly Juice is not a therapy. Okay, Jilly Juice is a fermented cabbage, water, and salt that really it's about the salt in the water and releasing the excess B cells and T cells that have been programmed against your body through the therapeutic means like walnut oil. And why people get nut allergies, because they're using aggressive walnut oil against their own DNA, and their immune system is creating B cells and T cells against that specific protein, that nut protein. And so when somebody has taken walnut oil a couple years ago, like heavily into the walnut oils and all the different food, plant-based oils against their DNA as a therapy, then when they're eating nuts and fruits and different therapies, or I'm sorry, different foods, then their body goes into type of anaphylaxis. Their body has already created a defense system against that food through the plant-based therapies. And so Jilly Juice is never meant to be a cure. Jilly Juice is only meant to catalyze and release all of those B cells and T cells that are in the blood types A and B, as well as the B cells in the blood types O, and release all that stuff. But when they're being released, it's painful because those are the little microbes that are eating you out from the inside, causing the autoimmune disorders, causing cancer disease and chronic illness. And so when your body's releasing all of those different B cells and T cells, it's painful. And this is why any type of therapy or virus waking up your immune system then has given them then anaphylactic reactions. They want to go and blame the therapies, which they should, but they want to go and blame the people who are taking on the therapies, which, okay, I understand that. But it's not just the people who are doing the allopathic, it's the holistic based therapies, the oils market, the supplements market. And so, Deborah, I tagged you in this because you were like, well, isn't Jilly Juice made of fermented cabbage? Well, yeah, but it's not a therapy. It's actually a release. It's actually activating your immune system to release all those excess aggressive catastrophic programming against the food supply. So when the essential oils market came onto the scene and they were using fruit derivatives, they were using nut derivatives, they were using different elemental derivatives against your DNA, your system created a defense against it. But also when you're surrounding yourself around people who are using plant-based therapies, they're releasing those mucus microbes into the environment that have been programmed to attack those food proteins, and then you're taking them on and your body has to go and create a protein against it. But if it's weak, then it will take on that programming and then render aspects of the food supply ineffective. You won't get that nutritive benefit because you have a programming that is actively programmed against that specific protein. And so I know people in the medical holistic system, I know people in the J Juice world that still use plant-based proteins. I know people in the Jilly Juice system that still uses supplements. I know they haven't figured out, and they are using Jilly Juice as a cure too. I know that as well, and that's how they're able to go out there in public and not feel the anaphylactic reactions to their environment because they're cured. Remember, Jilly Juice can be a cure, but it's not supposed to be. Salt water can be a cure, but it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be a catalyst to release all of those aggressive conflicting microphages and macrophages called B cells and T cells. But then when you feel the pain of the symptoms from that, it's because those B cells and T cells are attacking you on their way out the door. But what happens is when people use so much of the salt water or Jilly Juice or any other type of curative, then they don't feel the attacks on their body. They don't feel it because they're cured. That's the dangers of cures. And let me tell you, I have said this, but anytime I position something that sounds like I'm going against those who have been vectored, it's not just the vectored. It's also the plant-based therapies using aggressive. Now, antibiotic, when you're taking a coconut oil, which is not as aggressive as like a walnut oil, but you're taking a coconut oil, which is a carrier oil, and you're mixing it with coconut oil with you're mixing it with coconut or with walnut oil, and you're mixing it with oregano oil, and you're mixing it with other types of like ashwagandha oil or anything else, and you're using it against your DNA, you have now taken your body has now looked at it as an enemy, that oil as an enemy against itself. And whatever proteins are in that specific remedy that you're using, now the body is programmed to attack any kind of protein that's involved with it. And that's where the nut allergies come from. That's where all the different allergies come from. All the food allergies come from the plant-based industries. And so it's hard for people to reconcile with that the fact that the medical holistic system, especially the holistic system, has weaponized the food supply against the people. And so when you're out there with people, when you're out there hanging out with people, you're taking on that weaponized programming against the food supply. And if you're not strong in releasing those specific B cells and T cells, the excess that could commandeer your system, then that will then render even certain aspects of the food supply inert and ineffective to you, because you're taking on somebody else's programming. And this is why I say you have to now start planning your exit strategy, people. As far as the JJ world, we know those are in the mainstream, and even in the alternative mainstream, all the activists, they don't get it. And even very few of my JJ crowd gets it. But some of you are actively planning your exit strategy out of the public. Some of you are just like oblivious and like, oh no, J juice is going to protect me. No, it's not. Because if you're using J juice as a cure against you feeling all the attacks, then you're no different than those who have done all the different, therapies out there. And so that's why I kept saying, now you need to stay home and stay safe. But when I said to some people, go out there and feel the new variant, because I want you to feel what it's like to deal with, which I didn't really know intrinsically that's what I was doing, but I want people to know how aggressive it is. And when you're out there with a bunch of people and you have already predispositions and it's going to wake up and trigger them, good. You need to get it out of your body. You need to know that you're under attack when you're out there in public. You're under attack, and you have to release those little microbes that are weaponized against your food supply and against you. And so that's why the system has delivery services. That's why the system says, okay, you can wear a mask. That's why the system is giving you opportunities to work from home. That's why if you have to go out there and work for whatever reason, they want you to be V'd, because at least it gives you some semblance of a synthetic protection, but then you have to still reconcile with the fact that your body is going to create defenses against it, and you still got to deal with it. So if you're planning to be out there in public working with companies that require certain therapies, know that you'll be in that company for a certain amount of time until your retirement if you're in America and you have Social Security. And then when you plan your exit strategy, now you have to rebuild your body against working in that environment. Or if you're all about being out there in public doing your entrepreneurial job, at some point you're going to have to stay home more than not, because the amount of attacks from the microbes from your public, from your friends and family, are going to be way more than what you're able to take in as far as food and rest and reparations. And so at some point you will be so exhausted from fighting the battles within, being out there, when you actually feel stuff, when you are uncured, that you don't want to be around your friends and family, because they're dropping microbes left and right. I mean, when you have multi-generational homes where people are dying and reproducing simultaneously, they're releasing those weapons against your body. And you're picking them up and you're inhaling them. And you're even taking them on. So when you're eating a food that the person had a therapy against that food because of the walnut oils, or because of the elemental-based therapies that they're undergoing for treatments for cancer, disease, and chronic illness, and you're taking that on. And now your body is now trying to attack whatever proteins and whatever derivatives are in those therapies in your regular environment. You're supposed to be exposed to trace amounts of minerals like mercury, radiation. You're supposed to be exposed to everything in your environment, and then the food supply is supposed to then give you the substance to deal with the incoming and the outgoing, and then you're supposed to then assimilate and adapt to it. But when you're under aggressive attack from people who are undergoing these therapies, whatever they are, that's a lot of energy that you have to take in and have substance against to produce. And then eventually you don't want to be out there. You don't want to hang out with grandma and grandpa anymore, because you're actively trying to defend yourself against their microbes. Grandma, grandpa, anyone that's immunocompromised are releasing those weaponized microbes. And so, yes, jelly juice is plant-based, but it's not a therapy. It's plant-based because it's food. You're supposed to eat food, but not use food as a weapon against your system. The salt is not poison. If you're trying to make a correlation that the jelly juice is like an aggressive antibiotic therapy, then you've missed the point as far as probiotics. Now, you can have too many probiotics to where with how it's being used or created. Let's say sugar probiotics. You can have too much sugar cause then an insulin resistance and other stuff. So you need the salt water to go and offset the sugar overdose type of thing. And vice versa. If you have too much salt and too much of the salt water and not enough the sugar and the carbs, then you waste away to nothing. I've said time and time again, jelly juice should never be used as a cure. But you're supposed to be eating food, a higher sodium diet, salting in so you can regenerate, salting out when you have initially tried the J juice and you're now resetting your body to release all those little microbes that are working against you. Now you have to finally edify yourself and rebuild from all those attacks from those microbes leaving the body, as well as whatever you're taking on in your environment. And then you don't want to be out there with people. That's the main point of the whole JJ meta mentality. It's evolving. But let me tell you, people are not evolving on the JJ meta. They are not. They're using it as a cure. They still want to have their regular lifestyle. They still have their belief systems. They still want to demonize and worship a person, place, or thing, element, or microbe. And they don't get it. And then when they see something on my Facebook that looks like it's part of their political whatever, where they want to blame someone who has done a V or not done a V, then you know how lack of evolution is happening. You know they're cured. They're still in their political stances. And so your comments, Deborah, were kind of obvious that you weren't keeping up with my information. I'm not mad at you for it because I know people are so busy and so distracted trying to fucking survive. And every single time that you don't stay home, stay safe, rest, release, set up your life to deal with this environment and eating all food in the food supply, you keep taking on all the different allopathic and holistic remedies, whatever they are, and procedures, you are taking yourself way more behind the 8 ball. And when people get to a point where they're in hospice or they're in palliative care, you know how hard it is to pull somebody out of the grave? It's basically virtually impossible because it's so fucking painful. And so this is where you have to plan your exit strategy out of your public life. It's not going to happen for most because they are so dependent on the social capital and having to be around people because that's their outside validation. They haven't validated themselves, so they need other people to validate them, whether it's their friends or family, their social interaction, their foundations, their hobbies. I understand it's very difficult to transition from one simulation to another, but it's necessary if you want to survive this. And I'm trying my best to give you guys every opportunity to plan your exit strategy and strategize your way out of this mess. But that means that you have to be autonomous. That means that you can't get mad at the system. But remember the 3 stages of truth. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it's violently opposed. Third, it's accepted as self-evident. And I have finally accepted that it's self-evident. I realize I am surrounded. There is no resistance against what's out there. Now you just have to go and survive it and try to make your movements minimal, and you stay away from most people if you can. And if you have to be around people for a certain time, then you know you're going to have to recover from the microbial attacks. Because remember, love, hate, and laughing and entertainment, all that stuff is an over emotion, and it's a selling point into getting you into an edification that goes down a very treacherous path. And so people get caught up in the love and the hate and the laughter and the anxiety and the depression and all the different emotions that are involved with our society as a whole at this point. And so when I finally released all those excessive emotions, and then I realized this is just matter of fact. It's either you build up your body to deal with the microbial attacks and you don't put yourself in a war like being around your friends and family all the time, or you have to constantly fight the microbial wars and then lay blame. That's the main thing about what goes on is people are out there fighting wars, but then they want to go and lay blame on someone over there, but they're hanging out with people who are giving them the microbial attacks. They don't realize that their friends and family are probably one of the worst enemies as far as microbially because you don't know what they're doing. You don't know what kind of therapies they're doing. And if you know they're actively degrading and they're actively aging and they're actively dealing with cancer, disease, and chronic illness, then you know you're going to have to deal with all of their therapies that have been weaponized against your DNA And then you have to build up defenses against that. And that is exhausting. That's why I'm telling you, I've been feeling, that's why I don't go out there that much. That's why I kind of changed to like Instacart or delivery services, because the amount of microbial attacks at Walmart and hanging out with people is so much more than I really want to deal with. And I have to keep recovering from that. And that gets exhausting. That gets tiresome. But if you can't change the way you even think about that, then you can't blame anyone but yourself. You can't even blame the people that you think is causing your issues. Because really, when you think about it, your issues of why you have to have certain things done to you is because of your family and friends. But you don't want to, but you love your family and friends. You love your social, networks. You love all your foundations and all your religious or political or whatever. And that's going to be the death of people, is that they can't realize that even their own associations are what causes their degradation. It was causing their body and their mind and their spirit to change and be altered. And they can't come to terms with that they're even their own family and friends. I love my husband, but I know I have to recover every single time he comes home, because he's bringing home the microbes that are attacking not only him, but attacking me. And I have to go and release that and put that out there. And then he takes it on, and hopefully he can find a way to release it. But even my dog has to deal with that. And that's why she had to go through all the different stages of reparations. And she gets mucus coming out of her back end when she's exposed to something that's attacking her. And so I know her immune system and her body's working effectively because the mucus is being released. But let me tell you, many people do not get this, and they won't get this. But I will give certain people my time because they've been around for a while. And Deborah, you've been around for a while. I want you to get this. You may not, but I want you to get this. Because I do have a commitment to the people that are in my JJ world that is stuck around for a minute. But I know you have busy lives, but let me just get you up to speed. This was the last 2-week revelation. I'm telling you, my evolution and edification to what's going on is that quick that even that it makes me kind of dizzy just thinking about how much I have evolved and edified myself to what's going on. And even when I look back on what I've written the last couple, months and years, I have to even go and change that because the tone has to change. I can't get mad at the system. We know we're in an active decline. We know we're in an active reset. But now how are you going to save yourself? Well, you're going to have to change your lifestyle and change your belief systems and start realizing that even your family and friends are going to destroy you. Your circles of influence are going to destroy you. Autonomy is the only answer if you're going to survive this, because it's exhausting fighting the microbial battles out there. It is exhausting, and people are getting skinnier and skinnier, or they're getting more obese and more altered as far as their personality. And then this is where all the dementia and the Alzheimer's and all the different neurological diseases become even more prominent, because the amount of attacks on people's neurological systems. Their motherboard is under attack. And so if you're having to get these procedures done in the allopathic world, that's only put you more behind the 8 ball. But can I tell someone not to get a medical procedure? Oh, fuck no, I can't. That's their own personal choice. It's not up to me to tell them that they shouldn't do anything as far as a therapy that is sanctioned by the FDA and by the medical system. But you have to know what you're doing and why, and you have to know where the root cause is of why you have to get these procedures. It's your friends and family and the microbes you're releasing. And until you come to terms with that, then you will be resisting the new simulation, and then you won't survive the new world. And maybe people don't want to survive the new world because they don't want to see the new world anymore because of what they think. But look at Bill Gates is creating a lab created meat where where an animal doesn't have to suffer. That's fucking amazing. Thank you, Bill Gates. Because I really don't want cows and sheep and horses and whatever to suffer being our food source. If we can recreate the amino acids and the nutrients that are in the food supply in a lab, then my body will assimilate to it. And then there's less suffering for the animal, less suffering in the big agra as far as the farms. Because even the farmers out there that have their own little farms, those animals have to undergo the torture of being killed to feed the family. What if it didn't have to be? What if people didn't have to be tortured? What if animals didn't have to be tortured to be our food supply? And so you realize that the new world isn't as bad as you think, but you have to start changing the way you look at things. And if you already have demonization against a person, place, or thing, or microbe, or element, then forget it. You're not going to fucking survive. And I want you to survive, but it's not up to me to decide. It's you to decide if you want to survive this new world. But I'm glad that they are figuring out lab created meat, because I understand the vegan vegetarians' political stance against the food supply, but at this point, it is what it is. Until they can replace all the cows and the meat and the sheep meat and the chicken meat, until they can replace all that with lab created, where it'll still be nutritious for someone like me and whoever else, it'll be nutrition no matter what, because I will adapt to it. Then I have to deal with whatever we have to deal with today, and I'm sorry if it's against the vegan and vegetarians, political stance. But until the world until the world has changed 100%, which is going to take a while, because we have 7.9 billion people that we have to deal with, and all of their microbes, and all the therapies are undergoing, plant-based or not. And so the JJ meta mentality is worlds beyond most people's comprehension, because the salt really just it created clarity. And now that I'm uncured, I can feel the microbes. I can feel my body having to react. But you have to understand how your immune system works. It is one big defense system. It's an arsenal against anything that's attacking it. And if you're using, again, plant-based therapies attacking your DNA, like cannabis oil, walnut oil, oregano oil, garlic oil, colloidal silver, any of those holistic remedies, then your body sees it as an attack. And so when you're exposed to those same proteins, but in a different form, like jewelry or like in your food supply, then your body's going to go into anaphylaxis called allergies. That's what I mean by plant-based therapies. Chili juice is not a plant-based therapy. Chili juice is just food. And people are missing components of the food supply, whether it's sugar, salt, or other types of proteins. And then their bodies are in atrophy. And then they have to undergo all these different procedures in the medical holistic system. And then they want to go and blame somebody in the medical holistic system when they're partaking in it. And that's the paradox that people are under, that they can't come to terms with. And they don't realize that their own friends and family are cannibalizing them, causing them to go through these procedures. And that's difficult when you realize that you are sleeping with the enemy, so to speak. All right, bye.